All right. Well, one of the other big things that's been kind of discussed in the community this week is format. And specifically today, I want to bring up the conversation about best of 3, best of 2, best of 1, looking at format and talking to you guys as players and coaches, how different formats affect you guys, how it affects your prep, how it affects your week-to-week schedule. And looking right now at best of 3, let's just talk a little bit about what your preparation is like. You're playing 1 or 2 series a week. Is this kind of an ideal schedule for you guys right now?
I think in terms of burnout, it's good, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best in terms of practice. So what I like about it is that if we play 1 game a week and you have a day off, that means you've got like 5 days of scrims. And depending on the type of team you are, you either practice on, or rather you either learn faster on stage or you learn faster in scrims. And if you're a team that learns faster in scrims, which I think we are, then 5 days of scrims is much more beneficial than something like, say, 2 games a week and 2 best of 5s or best of 3s a week. So personally, I like the amount of games there are right now in regular season. And also, as far as best of 3 is concerned, I really like results coming out of a game. I think it's much more fun to play best of 3s because you see more of an adaptation and you see who can really figure out the enemy team and pull out a win from there. So as a coach, it's much more fun and it's much more rewarding to play best of 3s. But with that said, maybe best of 2 is more fair with how league works.
With like you have 1 blue side, 1 red side, each patch, no matter what.
Right, and so I think you get to see like proper results on each side for every team, regardless of patch and game.
But maybe not the best at gauging adaptability in series, which is something that kind of reflects to a certain degree our playoff environment with best of 5s being the focus. Maxler, we were having an interesting discussion on the desk earlier about more opportunities potentially to practice in the regular season, extending the regular season, having more opportunities just to play in general, best of 3, best of 2 regardless. Is this something that you're a fan of?
Yeah, so I still prefer the best of 3, or like even if you can make it a best of 5, it would be good too, just because, I mean, because no matter what, like the more games you play, the more you'll know like which team is better, right? It's like there's a higher chance of the better team to win a best of 5 than there is for a best of 3, if you know what I mean, right? Because
Sure.
they can still cheese a game or something like this. So I prefer best out of 3 compared to best of 1 or best of 2. I would also like to play some of the teams in Group B more, just because you end up playing them in playoffs anyway. And I love playing on stage just because stage practice, even though, like you said, we do learn a lot from scrims, sometimes translating that could be difficult depending on the team. And some people have fears on stage, like if they mess up, damn, this sucks. And also the enemy team just plays completely different on stage compared to scrim. So I would like to get used to that more and practice on stage environment more.
I mean, that's kind of another argument we see a lot from a lot of fans is regarding this like practice on stage, which I always found super interesting because obviously in traditional sports and so on, like it's all about the practice you get off the big stage. When you're not playing the actual match against the other team, it's what you do like the days leading up to it, as you were highlighting, like 5 days of scrims. Technically, in a perfect world, that should be good enough adaptation as a coach and, you know, preparing for a best-of series. Yet, stage is still so different for a lot of teams that it makes it hard to say that the stage practice doesn't actually matter. And from listening to you guys, clearly it does matter still for a lot of teams, even if it technically shouldn't, because you should have serious enough scrims for that to actually be good enough adaptation, but it probably never will be.
And we've talked a lot on PGL about scrim culture before, so I don't really want to go back there, but I'm curious as just to what is the biggest difference for you, do you feel like? Is it just the fact that teams play differently on stage, or is it more for you as an individual, not looking at your opponent, finding that confidence on stage and finding how to execute better as a team?
Well, it's a bit of both. There's the whole idea of, you know, like this champ would never work on stage and stuff like this. And
because teams are more passive? Or?
Yeah, teams are generally like more passive. Like at least in scrims, it's like, holy moly, you're not going to win the game, you know. But I just lost the Elise game right now, bro. So it kind of proves the point. So there is the issue of people respecting more on stage when there's actually something on the line. And also the fact that we, in my opinion, are still not performing at like the level that we should. Not all of us have confidence on stage on specific days. Sometimes, like most of the time, I'm pretty confident, I would say. Sometimes maybe I'm not. And that will be more like that'll show more on stage because I know there's more on the line, right? So I think, yeah, I forgot the question, but yeah. Stage is good.
Stage is good.
That's
Got it. Stage is good. Hussein, I want to ask you a little bit. There's a lot of different formats out there in esports. Is there anything that you would like to see in competitive League of Legends that we're not currently seeing in terms of format or structure?
On my end, I think it's the same reasoning for best of two versus best of three versus best of two, but it's a lot more fun. Or rather, it helps your competitive drive a lot if you have a clear victory at the end of it. And I feel like regular season, while it helps create a lot of rivalries, it's always a lot more fun playing in playoffs. So personally, I would like regular season to be shorter and have like double elimination in playoffs, for example, because you keep the same amount of best of fives, but there's more of, like, it's just a lot fun from a competitive point of view to play in a situation like that. And as to, like, you know, stage practice versus scrim, I completely agree that stage practice is really important because, especially, like, every team will have someone, or, you know, the team as a whole that struggles to transfer for scrims into stage. But I feel like it also, there's like a fun factor to it where, like, you see what player shows up on stage in a more stressful environment that I think playoffs provides.
Is there a way to improve that part, like outside of stage, or is it all literally just the guy gets enough games under his belt, wins games, does well, that's how you get the confidence? Or is there something you guys can do, like off the stage, to help these guys adapt? Because you see, like, Fnatic with a bunch of rookies coming in, and it never really felt like Broxah or Caps needed that much time to adjust to get confidence on stage.
Yeah, it's definitely the case. I feel like there's a few moments where maybe it wasn't 100% right, where Caps is maybe treating it a little too much like solo queue, or Broxah's limited in
confidence at least that he's
maybe the wrong kind of confidence.
So I just wonder if there is a way to actually help players in that sense, or is it more just on the specific player on his own, get in there, do well, and then it's gonna naturally just happen?
I think it depends on. I think it really depends on the individual. Some people just adapt better to stage than others, but as far as, like, tools for helping, you can do simulations for LCS, which will never be the same as LCS, but you can, you know, try to change training so that there are certain times where, you know, you pressure a player in certain ways. You can have sports psychologists to help them prepare mentally for a game. You can discuss, you know, what a game means, and also just beforehand, you can always talk to a player and figure out, you know, what's really worrying him and if we can work around it.
So it seems like a lot of the biggest things with format is just at the end of the day, stage experience and experiencing these tense situations. Is that fair? Is that, like, the biggest thing to consider? Because when we look at a format, right, I think there's complaints about a lot of formats in a lot of different ways. But Max, there's something that you said while we were off air, and repeat it now. If you're the best team, it doesn't really matter what the format it is. You need to win games, and if you're the best team, you're going to win those games. Is that just kind of the summary of the formats in general?
So I think the mindset that everyone should have is just to be the best team. So regardless of format, you should always, like, the players should not care, right? If you want to be the best, if you're in this industry, in my opinion, then you got to give it your all and be the best team and, you know, just stomp everyone. So format wouldn't matter in that regard. However, in my opinion, if you play, like, if you can play more games, it shows more growth as well as a team. Because say if you only play 9 games in a split compared to, like, 15, let's say, right? Those 9 games, if you lose in the first few weeks, and even if you start improving and make a comeback, it's going to really, like, you're not going to maybe make playoffs, you know? But if there's 15 games, then you can grow more. You can actually make playoffs. You have time to do this and that. Like, I was with Rocket last split, and at the end, we just, like, if we had more games, then maybe we would have made playoffs. But if we had less games, then we might have been relegations, you know? So it's really just, in my opinion, the amount of games is just growth of a team, and caring about the format should not really matter unless if you're planning to be a loser.
All right. Well, I hope that no one is planning that. Well, thank you guys so much for your insight. With playoffs just a few weeks away, we'll see how the landscape changes when we go to best of 5s, and the pressure is on.